I hear something. That's not fun. If I speak again, it's going to be really bad too. You heard the echo. Okay. It's still echoing, right? That's because I wish I had my headphones. For some reason, they were charging, but they weren't charged. I could try to get them. Maybe they'd last a little bit. Maybe I'll try that. What do you think? What is this view? It looks very strange. I don't know why it's like that. A little echo. I know, Beth, but that's so annoying, right? Let me go grab the headphones. Then I'll probably really screw it up. Let's see. It's actually going through this webcam, I think. Let me look at settings one more time. Camera. No. Now if I go to ooh, that sounds a little scary. It's even worse. So much for echo cancellation. Give me a second. Let me try something. Tasha, behave. All right. Oh boy. Okay, I am. Is that different, guys? I put my headphones in. How about now? All right. Good. Very strange. All right. I don't know why the screen looking strange. Probably because I turned it out and turned it on. All right. Well, we'll just do it this way. All right. I got your questions. Let's hop into it. Since now we're like 20 minutes late. Interestingly, I have an echo, but I'll probably survive it. New computers, what do? You spend days trying to get everything lined up. Okay. But it's good for you guys and no echo? No echo? It's totally echoing in my ears. All right. But I can live with that. Let's see what we got. Kevin Johnson's in the house. Less than 30 days for my hearing. ALJ has 58, I assume, percent. Is that? Yeah. Approval rate. So that sounds good, Kevin. Don't be the other 42%. You know what you got to do. Okay. I'm just scrolling down. RD's in the house, AKA Dolphin. Hello from California, he or she says. There. Jackie's in the house. Or Jack sees. Jack says. Jack says, hi, Stephanie. Is there a way to connect years of shitty documentation by providers? Yes, I know that's a loaded question. A load of what? Right, Jack? I'm just going to do one more thing real quick. I don't know why it's... I know you guys can't... I don't think you guys can hear the double echo, but it's quite annoying. Let me see if... Window, I only have one open. I don't know. Something I'll have to work on. Okay. You know what? You can ask. You have a right to request that records be corrected if they're wrong. We've kind of talked about this a few other times before. Each state probably has its own protocol for doing it, but I think it's just a written request. And obviously document that you made it. I'm thinking the medical licensing boards might also have information on what that they advise their licensees of how to address. My general understanding is that everywhere that there's a right to request it, they have to look at it and consider it. They can say no, but they have to document that you requested it, and that's got to be in the record that you requested it. That's my general understanding of how it probably works in all states, but at least in many. I know it's a nightmare because whoever looks at their medical records until they need to, right? We trust our doctors. Well, we used to. Yeah, might be a thing of the past. As a generality, don't want to shaft the good ones. Oh, look at my little typo. Can you hear music? H-E-R-E. Okay. Let's scroll down to anything of substance after I wasted everybody's time, and I'm so sorry. Any questions, guys? I'm scrolling. But I should say hi to everybody as I'm doing that. We got Jack. We talked about Jack. Michelle was in the house, and she told me she could hear the background. It was until I started chiming in. I'll get this fixed before next week. Yeah, I got a secondary system, much more robust. It's quite the investment. But, you know, you always have to have your next when you're old. I don't know. It's not that it's meeting its life expectancy, but with software and bandwidth and all this stuff and memory and RAM, because everything is getting so sophisticated, I didn't want to be left when that bypassed what I invested in 3 years ago. So I have my old one's the backup now. Although I probably should have hopped on there for this. Who knew? Danny's in the house. Hi, Danny. RDM. Let's see. S. Lewis. Nice to see you. Let's see. Beth, of course. Always good to see you. La Lulu. I see a bit. Good to see you. Oh, while we pass the time and I'm scrolling. Ran out of propane. That's how we heat our house. Fortunately, we do have electric baseboard, but I don't like to use it. But I kept procrastinating checking the propane tank because I feel like I just filled it. And we have a huge cold snap here. I think it's not so much right now because it's snowing, but it was like under zero overnight. And I had the propane fireplace on full blast. I even had to put on the electric with it because I felt like it wasn't enough and have all the birds in that downstairs. This is like our main floor. So I was cranking everything. I have a big bill at the end of the month. Let's see. Oh, anything good said, restart the computer and come back in. I'm going to do that when this is done. Yeah, La Lulu, I'm going to do what you recommended. Anything good? Yeah, check for updates on video card. I literally just got it, and I had them put all the upgraded system things in there before they sent it to me. I'd like to think it was all good. I mean, I've never paid this much for a computer system. Oh boy. I'm just scrolling, guys. Mike Page is in the house. Mike, you don't hear an echo anymore, right? I'm just seeing if there's any questions, guys. Oh, mute your computer speakers, Beth says. Be good if I knew how to do that, Beth. Turn speakers down. I don't really know how to do that. Well, that would be this, but then it's, oops. Hello? Oh, maybe like that? Since I don't need to hear anything, right? Okay. That's better. At least I don't hear myself in my ear, because, I mean, how annoying is that? It's bad enough you guys have to listen to me. Danny says, SOJ, I come to class and this happens. It's me. Got it. Yeah, I did it. No paranoia now, Danny. All right. John Calamus is in the house. Okay. Canova Henry's in the house. Nice to see you. We're almost at the bottom, guys. All right. Canova's got a... Oh, Beth, you're so sweet. It's never a waste of time here at the highlight of my week lately. Oh, that's super sweet. I have to tell you, everyone's heard this before. Wednesdays are my happy Wednesday. I advertise it as, because I'm like, it is the funnest day. Well, you want to say hi? For me, because I take a little break from the regular work and do this. So it's kind of fun. So Canova Henry is our first major question. Oh, someone else. Was there our second question? All right. Canova Henry says, I'm approved for my reconsideration case, but my lawyer applied for SSDI and SSI claims, and I was wondering why I haven't heard anything from my SSI claims yet. Well, if you're approved for your reconsideration SSDI, that means you met the medical. That means you met it for SSI too. However, SSI also has, sorry, I'm just moving this. SSI also has the financial stuff. So they will get around to that. If your SSDI is too much that you wouldn't get SSI for any months you got SSD, Canova, then for all the months you wouldn't get SSI, which could be all of them, or could just be the ones that took place after the months you're eligible to collect a payment. From SSD. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes if you filed it together and you said I was disabled last month or last year, and the SSA agrees that you were disabled the last year, and you're going to get the last 7 months of back benefits all the way through the present. The SSI only applies from the date you applied in for it. It doesn't go back with the others. And then the date that you started being eligible for the SSI, you were getting SSD because you've been getting it from 7 months earlier and forward. You wouldn't get any SSI. That's if your SSD is over, say, $987, I think would be the amount, probably. So just have some patience. Honestly, hopefully your SSDI is so much that you're not eligible for SSI for any months you have SSD. That would be my wish for you, because more is better. And to have just SSDI because it's more is awesome, because then you don't have the thumb of SSI up your backside all the time, because that is really the life of SSI. Ask anybody on it. You know, it's a necessary safety net for sure, but it's for obvious reasons that I support. It's got its strict rules, and because people will blow off every rule they can if there's no overseeing going on, you know, they kind of have to do it. All right. But anyway, congratulations, Canova. That's awesome. I'm so glad you were approved. Jennifer Cologne is in the house. Meeting with Jonathan today for hearing prep. Super nervous. Oh, you got this. Thank you for explaining DLI and date last worked. I really appreciate that. You bet. Anytime. Fingers crossed for you. Jonathan, I know we'll do you top notch. And yeah, knock them dead at the hearing. You got this. And your medical records are, I believe, very strong. So I think you'll do. I feel very hopeful for you. So fingers crossed, and I'm going to be praying for you, Jennifer, in the real way. PNW Patriots says, my attorney keeps telling me that they don't have my whole case file from SS. That makes zero sense to me, but let's read on. So I contacted ALJ office to check on getting my file from them. My attorney sent me a message today that says, oh, we do have it. You're kidding. So you have an attorney and they said they didn't have your Social Security file. That makes zero sense unless they're not like regular practitioners of SSD, because anyone who regularly does it gets permission for electronic access. They go through an interview, they get poked and prodded. This happened to me back in, I think, 2007 when it was really a long time ago. Whenever they first opened it up, I was one of the really fortunate first ones to be able to do it, because I used to actually go to the local field office and say, I'd have to make an appointment to get a copy of a client's file, whether it's my client from the beginning or coming on afterwards. And they would give me a big ARS paper file, and I would use their I would use their copier and copy the whole thing. I would spend hours. I had a baby at the time. She's now 19. And I remember, well, that helps me figure out when they started the beta. I'd bring her with me in the little carrier. She was so good. If I had been my son a couple years later, it wouldn't have happened. So thank goodness they got electronic. But yeah, that's what I would do. And they never told me to do this, but I started bringing reams of paper because I felt bad that I was using up all the paper, so I could have a copy of the file. I mean, technology, I know we all can complain about it, but my goodness, it is a difference. It makes a huge difference, as much as it's killing me right now with these speakers. But anyway, going back to it, Patriot, it's a shame that they told you that. And I wonder, did your attorney say it or did some worker in the office say it? Because I don't understand how an attorney could say, we don't have your whole file. So, I mean, if you had just signed on with them and they weren't connected to the electronic file, yeah, of course. It takes SSA a little bit of time to press those buttons. But why wouldn't they just say, just in time, we will have it? Because you having to write for it and all that, I'm sorry, BS. Well, I'm not saying this against your lawyer, but why wouldn't the lawyer just call the SSA and say, for some reason, his file isn't up there and we need a copy of the file? I mean, if you've already retained them, I just don't understand why that would happen. But anyway, at least it's resolved now and they do have it. See, that's the glass half full mentality. The silver lining? Nah, not really silver lining. All right. Canova says, my lawyer claims both July 8th, 2024. Well, okay, so SSI, that means he applied July 8th, 2024. Would that be, Canova? Because your SSI application is never going to count before the time you actually applied for it. SSD, you can assert way back. You can assert 20 years back. It may not be found that you're disabled 20 years back, but you can assert it. SSI, it's not that you can't assert it, but they will never be able to award you before the date you applied. So they won't even, it's a little frustrating because they won't even sometimes order even as much records as they would do with SSD for the same claim. Fortunately, if you have SSD, they're going to go back. But SSI, they will say, well, we can't look past July 8th of 2024. So, nothing else matters, which isn't really true. I mean, at least there's a perspective from the prior medical records that we're building up to it, right? Thank you, Mike Page. She says it sounds good. So, Patriot, you're saying that your attorney said he's going to send you a copy of the file. Well, that's good. Hopefully they have a portal. Like when my people, particularly ones that come on midstream, sometimes they'll be like, want to see all the medicals that are in the SSA file once I get my clause in there, when I get connected. And it's 2 seconds to download it, I mean, You don't even have to wait that long. It used to be sometimes you had to wait a day, but you log into the system, you go to your client's file, you select all, and you download. And then it comes right downloaded to the computer. And then I upload it to my portal, and then my client can take it or leave it. Oh, skinny boy, you're very sweet. Let's see. Patriot says, should my attorney send me everything they have sent SS for my ALJ hearing? I mean, should they? Do you really want them? I mean, we don't CC everything. The administration of just doing that. First of all, if we did it, it would be to the portal. We wouldn't be mailing it because mailing expenses go to the client. So I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate all those stamps and ink and all the costs of putting letters together. But the portal is helpful. But no, we don't take time to upload all the minutia at all. Some stuff is just between us and the SSA anyway. And honestly, it's kind of like work in progress, and we just don't do it. At the end, I always make the whole file available, because rather than interrupt and take more time, everyone gets a certain amount of hours. There's only a certain amount of hours in the day, week, month, year. So if we were to add that in, we'd have to cut our caseload down significantly. If every time you did something, you had to go. So we don't do that as a rule. Now, there are some things I upload because I want my client to look at it. Right? They upload stuff all the time. They're supposed to upload or otherwise present to me when they get a letter from the SSA. Some people say, well, I saw it was CC to Stephanie Joy at the bottom. Don't even assume it got here. Mail is not something I ever rely on. You guys know me. I'm always like, send a certified return receipt requested, or UPS or FedEx, with tracking, because it's a joke. I get other people's mail all the time. They probably get my mail. It's just the system of U.S. Postal Service is not like it was in the Pony Express days. So we don't, but going back to it, we don't send every little minutia. My people wouldn't even want to see it. I mean, it's boring, it is. Sometimes, it depends on what's going on too. Every case is different. Let's say we've been trying to get certain medical records from a particular provider that's been really stubborn. And I'd say to the client, hey, give your doctor a call and with honey, nudge them to get the medical records. When we get them, I message them like, hey, just so you know, those came in, kudos, so they know that the efforts that they went through, did something. But to blow by blow with the case, it's not going to happen. If someone wanted to do a case where they paid by the hour, every minute worked, that could be something that could happen. Like the way they do it in divorce law and all those other things. Oh, you want copies? They bill you for everything. Oh, you want to send a letter? There's $50 to you. You know what I mean? But SSD, we work with a whole different fee scheme, as you all probably know. And if you don't, we have videos on that so that people know how the attorneys can charge, do charge, why you're not going to see them doing your dry cleaning for you, because they don't get paid for any of the minutia they do. Not a single thing. In the end, it comes out in that contingent fee agreement, which may or may not cover those hours. I would say more often than not, it probably does not. But if you could still do the right job and, prevail on all your cases is the ideal thing, then, you can make a fine living, unless what you want is that 3-car garage, in which case then you do more like the volume driven factory type of business model where you have a 50% win rate. La Lulu says, we know you are conscientious of time value since you reloaded the live Q&As to minimize or remove the quiet sections. We won't complain about delay. Oh, you're so funny. Thank you. Beth says, where can I find my CDR date? It's not anywhere in the portal or on paperwork. Yeah, sometimes they put it in, sometimes they don't. You can call them. Yeah, a lot of times, we don't know, but you could call your local office. I don't know if you can call the 800 number if they have it. They might too, though, so you could try either one. Canova Henry says, I won't get my SSDI payment until April 2025. Do you mean 2026, Canova? Because we're already past April 2025. So I should be able to start it now while I'm waiting, right? Are you referring to that SSI question? Wait a minute. Let me scroll up. Okay. It depends if you're eligible. How? April 2025. Do you mean 2026, Canova? You might have told me that before. That date rings a bell. Did we chat otherwise? Like on a post or something? So if your SSDI is not eligible till April 2025, that means that would suggest that they found you disabled about 6 months before April 2026, pardon me. 6 months before that. So that's right about now. They did say, oh, we found you eligible as of this month, something that came in the door, very recent. Then, if that's the case, if you had SSI in, and if you are otherwise poor enough, so that would depend on other income in your household between you and a spouse. It would depend on whether you have no savings, 401k, or sellable properties that amount to a total of 2,000 or more. So if you are really underneath all that, yeah, you would get the SSI for the months you don't get the SSD, which should be 5 months or something like that. You wouldn't get it back to when you applied for SSI because apparently they didn't find you disabled way back when. They found that the evidence did not become strong enough, some missing link there in the evidence for strength until whenever they found your onset. Your onset date would definitely be in your award letter. We found you disabled as of. And then they would usually say, but we can't pay you SSD for the first 5 months waiting period. So your first payment due will be as of so-and-so month. It will all be in those papers, those first letter or two that they send you. RD says, I have new surgeon at UCLA meeting in January. I will need my 8th surgery. Oh. Mesh removal and bladder reconstruction. Still not 100% with my shoulder cuff repair. Bladder impairment. My onset date is June of 2024. Okay, well, good luck with that meeting with him in January. I forget what you said your case was. Did you get a denial, RD? I think you have a lawyer, right? You're welcome, Jennifer. As always, you're gonna rock it today, girl. I'm sure of it. Well, sure as one can be. Patriot says, case manager for my case. Oh, I got to scroll, Patriot. The case manager is the one that told you that they didn't have your file. Apparently, she's not a very good case manager, would you say? Oh, case manager said it. Haven't talked to my attorney in 2.5 years. It's always case manager. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how busy can they be? I just don't get it unless all they do is like hearings 8 hours a day. Is it a big firm? Attorneys are kind of antisocial. We all can be at times, but it's a shame if they don't use a portal. It's a small investment, and it's not going to hang on the phone with you and breathe down your neck, but he can message you things. It doesn't always have to be a case manager. I mean, I get we have people that answer questions that it's definitely going to go through them first. Like if it's something really quick and I'm busy, but if it's something that needs me, then I'm the one that answers. And I'm often the one that answers, even when it doesn't take someone else, but I happen to be, my clients know sometimes it'll be 10 o'clock at night and I'm like in the portal. Yeah. Responding to questions that came during the day or came in the evening, and let's say Liz couldn't get to it. And I'll just start responding to them, even though they're like super easy and anybody else could have done it. But I just like to keep it as cleared up for the next day as possible. Mike Page says, if you don't have a lawyer and you won your case, how do you get a copy of your Social Security file from the SSA? That's that 3288 form, Mike. And they can be very stubborn and they can make misstatements to you that, oh, you have to tell us exactly what you want. What's the name of the forms you want from that file? That's false. They can't do that. I do have a 3288 generic. Well, it's a form that we would have our information in if we were doing it, but I have it for the public. And in it, we've typed in like with a box, like, you can't make him, you can't make me. Oh Lord, you can't make, you cannot require that I know the names of the forms or whatever I want. I want my whole file and you're obligated to give it to me. Their form, literally they have on it that you can't do that. And they're not going to give you your whole file if you do that. That's false. And I attach the palms that says it's false. So I kind of put those little attachments on, copies of them right from the palms, to show them that they really shouldn't be deceiving the public like that. And then usually it works. Not always, you might get somebody at the SSA office that, I don't know, tosses it in the garbage, not sure. I kind of like getting a backup fax or something. Like if you're gonna mail it, get some sort of, I always say, certified mail, return receipt requested, but I know that gets a little pricey. Then fax it. And by the way, there are free digital faxes, guys. If you're only faxing sporadically, they'll give you like, I don't know how many pages a month, 10, 50, I don't know. Use them. It could be like myfax.com or Ring Central. I'm not sure. There's probably a ton of them out there. But use the little free versions that they have if you want, and fax the request to the SSA. You'll get a fax confirmation. So then if they ignore it, it almost gets to the point where I think if it's ignored, let's say you ask twice, you put like 2 weeks in between or something. You ask again, you wait 2 weeks, and you still don't get any kind of response, not even like there's a live body there. I always think, why can't someone complain to the OIG about abuse? I mean, it could just be fraud, because what is it? Fraud, waste, and abuse. It's not fraud. It's definitely waste. Like they're making you waste your time. And then you're sending more faxes to them and someone's going to have to go through that and file it. So it's because they're being so slow. I think it is abusive to not have a way for them to at least use that online SSA account everybody has to say, we received some mail, we're reviewing it. I mean, it could be an automatic button. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes to be. I mean, that currently the SSA is kind of going at rocket speed compared to the norm, guys, not compared to like private enterprise, but compared to the norm of the SSA in changing things technologically to get them faster and better for everybody, like claimants, beneficiaries, and even us representatives who they clearly don't care much about and probably wish we weren't around. Oh, but going back to what Mike, I was going to say, if you want, email me. I'll send you that blank one that you can play around with. And it's got the attachments and it references them, and you could try it if you want. Half Pint says, if approved, how often should a person continue to go to the doctor even if there's nothing else they can do for them? I'm going to have to be very general here, Half Pint. As much as is reasonable given the condition. I would not recommend only once a year. I mean, if you have a specialized problem, I would kind of think, I mean, you have a PCP. If you're over 50, aren't we supposed to be going to our PCPs for some regular blood work anyway? You know what I mean? Do that. And when you're at those every 6 months or whatever, I was doing a year, but I think now they want me every 6 months, probably since my gallbladder thing. And I don't know if I'm going to do it every 6 months because I'm really not. I'm like all you guys, or most of you, I don't like doctors either. So, although mine's very nice. I shouldn't say that. All of mine have been really nice. Yeah, the PCP is someone you can always keep complaining to with the thing. So when those records get ordered, if they get ordered on a CDR later, it'll show that you've been complaining about it's still the same. Is there ever going to be hope? Are they going to get a treatment? And again, be more specific about things too. Like I'm still spending X amount of time needing to nap or in the bathroom with the IBS or whatever, whatever anybody's, condition is. Diagnostic tests. That's how one monitors a condition that cannot be cured. So you're still getting the tests to see if anything's changed, if anything's got worse, because sometimes they will change protocols if something gets worse. Now it's serious enough for blah, blah, blah. I know it's kind of a generic answer, but everybody's condition is different, and everybody's bodies with the same condition is different, the way it reacts. So Limitless Boom, how are you? Says, unlike you, Miss Stephanie, there are so many attorneys out there that in no way, shape, or form are they representing their clients well enough to even come close to being approved for SSDI. I know that's true. There are plenty that are good, though. There's a lot. But yeah, there are many that, I don't know. I guess when they treat it like a business, when you treat it like a used car salesman business, I don't even know if they actually like what they do then. Like the joy of it is really the, I don't know, the gratitude, I don't know, the feeling when you prevail for somebody and you just know you did someone, you help someone help themselves make a difference, and they, and they deserve it. They worked for it. So I can't imagine, well, I can imagine being in an area of law that I don't like, and I just do it because that's what you're supposed to do, is work for a living and, pay your bills. And I did that for the first, like, let's see, 5, 6 years until I quit all that stuff and just miraculously jumped into SSD because I miraculously stepped into it and I had no idea it existed. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Kind of makes you think there's a higher being when something like that happens. Okay. Canova was saying, yeah, 24 April of 2026. Yeah, I know you and I interacted on this, I think, elsewhere, right? So I don't think, yeah, you could get the SSI if you're poor enough. Otherwise, not. Sometimes it's good to put in a dual application, even if you're not sure if you're going to be poor enough. Sometimes it's clear you're not going to be. You got a 401k sitting up there with 200,000, and 401ks count because people can dig into their 401k. But sometimes it's like if I talk to someone and they're not eligible for SSI now, but they might be soon because they're whittling down their savings, unfortunately, because they're paying bills, then I will say, why don't we just throw this in? They're going to potentially deny it because we're going to be honest on the financials, and they're going to ask some questions anyway. But in 2 months, you might have $1,500 left, And sometimes in the middle of a case, we throw it in, even though we know the SSDI will negate it. I remember doing work for a firm that I had a problem with it because they weren't doing SSI applications when the person's SSDI amount would negate SSI. And I said, but you're leaving like at the time it was probably $4,000 on the table. Yes, the SSDI will kick that out, but if you don't get the alleged onset date you assert and the SSI picks a later date, they could completely get that SSI to make up 5 months. And I don't know that they ever did anything to change it. I remember I was talking to it was like the case manager or something. I was helping a colleague's firm catch up on a bunch of applications. So we were putting a bunch of them in, and I would say, aren't you guys going to do an SSI application with this one, right? And then the case manager would say, well, no, because when they win the SSDI, I'm like, but the waiting period. And because they're thinking, the onset date is a year ago. They're going to win the onset date a year ago, and then SSI would be negated the whole time. Yes, that's true. But what if you don't get that alleged onset date as an established onset date? What if the SSA says, no, you don't win until we agree you're disabled, but it really wasn't until this date? Now SSI is in play because now that from that point on, you got the 5-month gap and you have an SSI application already in. So they just weren't seeing it. So I did the best I could. They probably changed up since then, maybe. Everybody was younger, and it was kind of like this field is new, but I feel like when I started, which was in 05, I feel like there was nobody. You were so solo. There was barely any internet functionality, like there wasn't any of this stuff. And it was you had to learn on your own and all that. And that's why I kind of try to help some of the younger practitioners and give them a little mentoring if they need it, want it. Because I didn't have that back then. I had to do it all myself. And that was probably ended up being a really good thing. I didn't learn any bad habits. I had to really navigate myself and build it myself in the way that would work best at the time, given the rules, with no preconceived bad habits. But I don't know. Midnight Bluey says, I'm on, I think it's Abilify 25 and Zoloft 200 helps with my psychosis, but gives me side effects. Yeah, he does say Abilify. Yeah, make sure those side effects are well described. Did you see it's still in progress, I think, the playlist for function report with mental health? You're definitely going to want to describe those side effects. I mean, this is true of physical too, but that particular video set, Midnight, is about how to fill out that 3373 function report when you are a mental health claim person and not a physical person. It can also be used by physical people who have, incidentally also mental health struggles, but because most people think of it as a physical function report, and it's not necessarily. There's many, many ways to get in all of on almost every answer, indicators that are how it is affected by your mental health struggles and all that. All right. Canova says, I'm going to sneeze. I have nothing but my husband. I have only $600 per month. So I don't even know what that means. So your husband works presumably, or does he get some sort of benefit? I don't really know what that means, but you're saying you guys don't have a lot coming in the door. So if I don't know off the top of my head what amount of income is allowed, like I'm not even going to speculate. It's still pretty low. Obviously, the income from the household can be above what it would be for you to get it if you didn't have anybody. So even above $1,000 a month coming into the house as your income, you'll still get SSI. But it's only like they only give you I'm going to just say a ballpark. Let's say it's 1.5% of SSI amount is what is the maximum that you could have coming in the house and still get any monies from SSI, something like that. Beth is pointing out that she thinks I have a video on the 3288 form also. I think I do also, Beth. So if you guys search for that 3288, you'll find that video too. But if anybody needs that form with those attached rules that kind of spank the SSA field office into doing the legal and right thing, just ask. Just email us. Email assistant@joydisability.com and it will be taken care of. Email it to you right back. Hi, Carrie. Carrie says, what do you consider as good proof evidence from a pro se claimant? How do you enter them into evidence? Things I'm thinking of: doctor notes, copy of job description, or do I wait for SSA? What forms? Well, if you already told the SSA about the doctor and gave the proper time periods that you treated from beginning to end with that doctor, then they should be ordering it. And you want to keep in touch with your adjudicator periodically to find out that he or she did receive Dr. Jones' records. You could, but let's say you're like, yeah, but I can't reach him. He's not calling me back and I don't know what they have. Well, then, then I say it's a free for all because you have to represent yourself. And if they're not going to be responsive, I would send in everything. What's good proof or evidence is not different between a pro se claimant and a non-pro se claimant. It's all the same. So, it will depend on your medical condition, but you always want to have, whenever possible, objective diagnostic tests confirming the extent of the damage if it's physical, Obviously, you're not going to usually get that with cognitive or mental health. But if it's cognitive, you can get a neurocog exam that really shows where those weaknesses are. They can cost money, but maybe you could get your doctor to refer that, maybe. Into evidence, your adjudicator should have sent you a barcode page for evidence. If they didn't, you can call and ask for one. I don't know that you need that, though, if you now upload, and Anna, who I haven't seen in a while, had told me that this had changed, and I think this happened this past summer. It's one of those great technological changes that the SSA has put in the last, several months. You can upload evidence right to your portal once you are in the thick of a claim and at the medical workup stage. So you can directly upload your medical evidence. So get it digitally on your computer, scan it in or whatever you have to do. And then you upload wherever you saved it to with the link, you upload it. And then you could always see, supposedly, that it's up there. You can go in there and make sure it's there. I would take screenshots in case something happens awry and it gets glitched out, so you could prove that you had sent it up. That's what I would do. I'm really big into those keeping proof. And it's amazing, even with our cameras, guys. I'm not 100% good at it yet. I'm an old bird, so it takes a little while to get used to things. But I'm always like, snap a picture. Oh, that price? Snap a picture. Send it to Dad. See if we can buy it. Like, does it sound like a good price? It's amazing, what you can hear the dogs, right, guys? It's amazing what we can do now with pictures. You can really use it to protect yourself and to protect your rights. And particularly when you could see up there they had your evidence and now suddenly it's gone. You could say, it was here. Here's the proof. That could even work for like a reopen. If someone got denied, didn't appeal, and then I'm thinking, and it's like a just cause. And they say, I want this reopened when I file again because you get the old application date. So you'd get more back benefits if you prevail, because I sent them all this information. I have proof I sent it to them. Here it is. And they lost it and didn't consider it. And then that might be grounds for a reopen. And then you resubmit it again. Patriot says, it's a big firm. They do have a portal. Sometimes they want things on portal and sometimes they want things through an email. Is that normal? I can't say what's normal because I've only ever worked for myself in this field. I don't prefer email because everyone and their mother, domestic and foreign, emails this firm email. So I like my clients having all their stuff in their secure and encrypted portal. It's just safer. I prefer not emailing. Number one, it's filled with spam. Maybe it'll be found, maybe it won't be, but since we're not expecting it there and there's no need to send it there, that's usually not the place to send it. Sometimes people still do. Sometimes people fax things, and that's okay. But the email is, to me, the worst way. That's just my opinion. Because ours is just any email, you guys know, it's like it gets ridiculous. Yeah, I agree with you, Patriot. I think it should all go through the portal. I mean, I have some clients who have difficulty with portals because they're on a phone and they're not really very techy, like they're worse than me. And but they can take pictures of things, documents even. I would say make it bright, make it clear, and they text it to the portal texting number. Sometimes they forget and they send it to the 201 regular phone number. And that may or may not get seen in the text, but I try to remind them, text it to the 805 number. It takes most extensions now, so different file types, not all. But that is connected to their portal. It's actually part of the portal. It's not really a phone. It's a texting number. It's pretty cool. They didn't have that when I first started with this company, which was forever ago. I don't even know what decade anymore. It's been a really long time, but they've grown in leaps and bounds and all that. I like them. Limitless says, what would you say is the best advice to a claimant that's looking for an attorney to gather information for the attorney so that he or she can be best represented? Well, okay, so the question is, what would you say is the best advice to a client that is looking for an attorney? That's the question? I mean, you don't really have to gather the information before you get the attorney. I mean, if the attorney knows what he's doing, he's going to talk to you on the phone. They may or may not have an eval to get some of the basic information first. And they're going to be able to ask the right questions and know innately if there's a decent chance that this is a winning case if it's properly worked up. And if I mean that's the main thing. And you have to just feel comfortable with whoever you get. I mean, I talk to people and sometimes they're not comfortable. Like one person wanted literature on all the aspects of how we practice or something like that. And I'm like, sorry, don't have it, but you can go to the website and learn more, Ironically, it made me think, yeah, maybe we should put something together. I think that's in the works. It would be a big, long document. So have fun reading it because we're not going to do anything with it. You can just read it if that's what you want. But, a lot of times it's going to say, this is what you can expect from us. This is what you can expect us not to do for you. Here's what we expect from you as the most important person on the team, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I would be concerned if there was not a portal. Unless unless you really think the person replies to emails within a few days or something like that, I just can't imagine not having a portal except for a very newer practitioner maybe who maybe can't afford it yet. Although again, it's really not that much, but it is when you're starting out. I mean, I had nothing when I started out. I had just moved to a new state. And I was working tons of hours and I was not a bill collector with my clients. So that was a problem. So I had no extra to spare. I had a brand new baby. You know what I mean? It's pretty funny. Dolphin RD says, yes, I was denied. And in the appeal process, I am trying to stay positive, wishing everyone a happy holidays. RD, I think you said you had an attorney, right? I forget. Keep positive for sure. Patriot says, I wish I would have found you before I went with this big firm. You have helped me more than they. Oh, that's very sweet. I hope they'll do right by you. I always say, even if you don't like the way they practice and it doesn't give you all the cozies and stuff, they have every incentive to win because that's the only way they get paid. That is the beauty of the contingent fee system that the SSA has, right? There's no bill if you don't prevail, and they will have to eat the labor costs and everything else they expended, which is not cheap. So that is my positive, glowing remark on why you should stay positive. Patriot says, how do I email you to get the form? Are you talking about the 3288? The email is assistant@joydisability.com. But Patriot, you have a big firm. Can't they upload your entire file that they see in the electronic file down to your portal for you? It takes moments. It really does. I mean, when it happens around here, it's just a matter of, hey, when so-and-so gets a break, can you do this? Can you make sure that they get their file? It's not a big deal. So I think they should be able to do that for you. Christina's in the house. Here's Miss California Sunshine. Hi, Christina. Lulu says, when reporting non-employee income from house sitting, non-employee, so like contractor, Schedule C and SE, when reporting non-employee, does it matter if work dates occurred sporadically throughout calendar year or even get divided by between years if goal is earning work credit? Okay, great question. Thank you. If let's say you house sat 1 month and made $2,000, that's going to be SGA. unless somehow your business expenses legitimately can bring it down to under SGA. So, and I want to say, I don't want to give the math here. Getting your credits, you don't have to earn that much. It's like $18.10 per credit in 2025, I think. And obviously that's going to go up. However, and I just have to remind everybody of this, because just saying the $18.10, if someone is unaware of the way it's taxed, if you report that you made $1,810 in self-employment income and you pay the tax, you report it and you pay the tax they say you have to pay on that kind of reporting, you're actually only paying tax on 92.35% of it, which is going to be something less than $18.10. And that's the only part you get credit for SSA credits purposes. So when we say $18.10, you really have to go higher than that. I think I did the math not that long ago. I want to say it might be 2,046. I don't know where I get them from. Or is that the amount for next year? Don't hold me to that. But whatever, you need $18.10 to be the minimum for one credit after you knock it down the 92.35. So whether that's, do the math, guys, we could do it. I just don't have it on me. Yeah, maybe it is the 2,046. So if you made exactly 2,046, it should be $18.10 that you get taxed on, and you get a credit for that. Times it by 4, do it 4 times that year. So, but I always say, then just don't be so anal about it. Earn a little bit more. You know what I mean? Now, if you earn, so $18.10, that's a per quarter, because you are all year round. That only amounts to what? 600 and, am I doing the math right? $605, say, a month can get you that quarterly credit, and all 4 in the year if you do it every year, every month. You will be held to task if you earn more than SGA in a month. So an occasional month overage, it can be argued it was a failed work attempt, potentially. But why just tell yourself, I'm not going to earn more than $1,600 a month house sitting. I'll have to reject a job and just don't do it as much. And it doesn't matter. So going on to the rest of your question, La Lulu, it doesn't matter if work dates occurred sporadically throughout the calendar year. No, as long as you earned that $18.10 or the higher amount. Let's just say it's 2046 for just to cover this right now. 4 times that is 8,000. Let's see, 8,300. You could have earned that 1,000 each month for 8 months. You could have earned, had gaps. You could have earned 1,500 in a month, 500 in a different month. You know what I mean? You can spread it out. I'm just reminding everybody not to go over SGA when you're doing the best you can to make money, doing what you can despite your disabilities. You have a pending case, or you're about to file, or if you've already won and you're trying to make some extra money, you're going to want to look at all that stuff too, because you don't want to be. It's probably okay if you use up your trial work period. It's safer not to, for other reasons, but overall, technically, that doesn't destroy it. You want to never really, if you work over TWP but less under SGA, you're still going to burn through your TWP, and that puts you in your EPE, extended period of eligibility, for 3 years. This is for people that have already prevailed. And then any month you go over SGA, boom, you got to send that SSD check back to the SSA. That'll be an overpayment situation. And then if after the 3rd year, if you make another SGA month, you lose your benefits altogether. So, and you'd have to refile, or actually do an expedited reinstatement, possibly. right? But you can earn it whenever you want it. It's within the calendar year, La Lulu, so you can't take, say, 3,000 from this year, 10,000 from, let's say, 14,000 from next year, and try to get all 4 credits for both years. You can't. Each year stands on its own calendar year. So January to January. January to December. Canova, it is my pleasure. Thanks for being here. Deanna, how are you? Good to see you, lady. Deanna, I actually see you a lot more than you see me. In current days, it's daily. Did you guys hear that? Brian Murphy's in the house. Brian says, hi, I was fully and got a couple letters. I think you're saying fully awarded and got a couple letters. I got award notice a month ago. When do you think I'll get my back pay? I don't know if you've got SSD, SSI. SSI sometimes takes a little longer if you have SSI, because they have to do that perk interview to see how poor you are, make sure you still qualify for the poorness factor. If it's SSD and SSI, they do the SSI first. And so the SSD gets done by a different office after the SSI is complete. So it can take a little bit longer there too. If you had a workers' comp claim, of course, they're going to check for an offset. And that just reminds me, when you have a workers' comp claim while you're doing SSD, and it hit any portion of the time period that your SSD disability period was wrapped up in, always know that you need to find out when your case is over and you've won, if there's going to be any kind of offset for the workers' comp. I know it's easy to forget. I've had clients forget it. And you could get hit with an overpayment. I think a few years ago, they were completely not taking care of workers' comp offsets timely. I know one such person who just got a overpayment demand. I haven't spoken to them, but Liz told me, for like $40,000, because they kept paying her, they started to pay her, continued to pay her, and never did the workers' comp offset. And indeed, she has to be offset by the 80% rule. So there's no offset now, but she has to pay back for all the months that there was, when there was both workers' comp and SSD attributable to the same months. So workers' comp people, you have to make sure. If you are a higher income earner, you probably won't have an 80% offset, but middle to lower income, it's something you have to remember. I know it's easy to forget when life goes on and you finally got the checks coming in, but you're not going to want to spend those back benefits if you have back benefits. So it's kind of like you want to be the squeaky wheel, because just because SSA was slow and they sat on a bunch of stuff and now it's all getting cleaned up, having an overpayment is unfortunate. And of course, if you do have an overpayment and you are pretty, tight financially, even with your benefits, as a single or as a married person, don't forget about your waiver and your ability to argue for a payment plan that fits you. They're not going to know what that is, so they're going to automatically dock like 50% of your SSD if you have a workers' comp overpayment. But that's because no two people are alike. You could have like $1 million in the bank if you're on SSD. They don't know about that. It's not part of the SSD picture. But if you're claiming hardship, then you have to show. And you can claim if it's a hardship and try to get a very low repayment. And so what if you're going to be paying until you're 90? If it's $25, you could probably swing it. All right. That was a little digression, huh, guys? Anything good? Is that nothing good, or is that Northeast thing good? I say that because I'm in Northeast Pennsylvania. My son has special needs. He gets SSI. He has a review on Friday. I'm his representative. Okay. Well, fingers crossed for him. Are they reviewing? Is he a child or an adult? I'm just curious. Like, is he getting reviewed at age 18, like a redetermination because he's turning 18 and needs to meet the adult standard of being disabled? Or is it like a CDR? Or is it just a check on his finances to make sure he's still poor enough? Hey, Sean, retinitis pigmentosa, eye disease. Is this a condition that can qualify for SSDI? Does it functionally limit you to the extent that you can't work at any job? If so, then yes. For instance, does it legally blind you? Or does it not legally blind you fully, but combined with other impairments that you might have? I don't know how old you are, Sean, but I always say to everybody, do the body chart. Consider all your body parts and systems and brain. Compare it now to when you were 20. Is anything less strong, fast, durational, capable of repetition, pain-free, comfortable as it was when you were 20? If any are not, then that's something to consider whether you should be worked up to determine what's going on. Because don't let the old idea of, well, that's because I'm 51. Of course, it's age. Everyone's got this. Yeah, and guess what? You can use it to your advantage because all it means is you need to have proof that it's more limited, that it can't no longer pick up 100 pounds like you could when you were 20, that you can only do, 15. Maybe you need it to be, you could win with a light exertional, depends. And what other things can carve out jobs? What other limitations that could be postural or manipulative or what have you? I do. Dolphin says, I do have an attorney. Should I give a name? No. I would rather you not, unless you're going to say something really good about him, because I just put my hand in bird poop. You ever hear about using a toilet, little girl? Yeah, I don't want this to be kind of any kind of platform to bash. You could do that elsewhere. You understand that, of course, right? Limitless says, thank you. I have an attorney who was so detached, he said, no way I would be approved. Then why did he take the case? I gathered everything and was approved in 5 months. You seem like the opposite of him in a good way. Oh, thank you. He took your case, although he said there's no way you can be approved. That seems weird. So you got approved in 5 months with an attorney. Is that what happened, even though in your head, in your mind, you did all the work? Why would he say that? Now, it's funny because, some people here are aware we take some cases that are, I call them the 1%ers. Maybe it should be more like 1%ers and 5%ers. Ones that have a really, really poor chance of winning, not because the person is not disabled, but because of the rules and it could be their lack of evidence and the fact that some evidence that they had no longer exists. A remote DLI with evidence from 18 years ago that is no longer available and they never had it. You can't just go ask for it. Well, you can try, but they're usually going to say, oh, it was destroyed in a fire 18 years ago. I will tell them that there's a really remote chance of winning this, but sometimes I take them. Everyone knows that everything gets we have wait lists for things like this, but when one is come through a wait list or is in a really kind of unique situation that for, I don't know what the word would be, humanitarian reasons, compassion reasons, supporting someone who I think deserves to be supported and given that 1% chance that could become, say, a 70% chance if there's a lawyer or a 40% chance if there's a lawyer. That's actually what this is all about. This whole channel was really to support being able to take those cases that we know there's going to be there should be a likely loss so that they have a chance to be the winner of it. because otherwise they really have no chance. So turn that off. Didn't I turn that off? Getting all these things connected, guys, is crazy. So I would tell someone I think it's a slim chance. In remote cases, I often have to say, listen, there's a less chance than normal. If we had this case 3 years ago or 4 years ago, but you're DLIs in the past and you were a little slim on treatment back then, but and I don't know if any of them are here, but we take them sometimes because the person just deserves to have their shot. You know, they worked hard for it. They were disabled in reality back when it counted. And it's just through technique, you know, the laws, you know, that and the realities of when records go missing and that you're not going to get them can really strike. So I'm not afraid to take a case that we're going to lose because it's just the right thing to do. I don't know. It's kind of one of those just pro bono things, and we just chalk up the bucks, and that's where all these wonderful like little donations you guys do help pay for the labor to do that. Not my labor, but other labor. Jay Wiedenbach, how are you? New name, right? New screen name. I'm still in recon, and my attorney had me sign to file for the hearing at the same time. Okay. If I get awarded with workers' comp settlement before SSDI, do I still have to have a set aside? Oh, yeah, potentially. Oh, a set aside is different. Now you're talking workers' comp game. A set aside is like a Medicare set aside. I'm not going to go into that because I'm not workers' comp, but, and this is a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, guys, but when workers' comp cases settle, my general understanding is that workers' comp attorneys are often have a duty to do some sort of set aside language because Medicare does not want to pay for the workers' comp caused injuries. They say workers' comp is supposed to pay for that. So they have to do some sort of, I know nothing more about it except that there's a set aside for that. If you're talking about the workers' comp offset, that's a little different, JW. That's the 80% rule where if in any month you receive both SSD and this doesn't apply to retirement, guys. So once you get to retirement, this doesn't happen. So you want to keep your Social Security going so at least the retirement is preserved. SSD, workers' comp, if the two together in any given month received exceed 80% of your average current earnings, your average current earnings, or ACE, is an amount that's calculated on the last few years. There's a few ways they can calculate it, and they give you the most favorable, I think. The last few years that you were working before your onset date for SSD, I believe. So the overage over 80% would be the amount that you're not allowed to get. So if you already got it, let's say you've got a SSD back benefits and you got a workers' comp back benefits or had already gotten them month to month as temporary wages, they're going to do that math on all of those. And if you have to pay some back, that's why I say to my workers' comp people, I don't do their workers' comp, but I say, listen, when you get an SSD, we win. If and when we win, if you get back benefits, you will want to not spend them until you discuss with the SSA. And I'm not involved in this part of it. I'm out the door already, disconnected from the case. You're going to want to talk to them about making sure, hopefully getting it in writing, that there is no workers' comp offset. You want something to make you feel confident that you can spend that SSD. In the meantime, put the SSD in a high interest savings account or something. You know what I mean? So you get to keep the interest because they're not going to make you pay it back with interest. They're just going to make you pay whatever that offset is. So just something to think about. And yeah, it could be retroactive. Like when you get an SSD back payment now but it covered, it goes for 3 years back. You've got like a nice big dandy retro check. And only the first year of that 3 years of checks were you also getting, you got workers' comp back in the day in real time. Yeah, they're gonna compare and make sure, see about that math from a year ago, because your SSD retro partially consists of payments related to those months. Those are the months that you're getting paid for now that you've proven your case. Yeah, SSI, I don't think has to worry about this, Brian. I think it's just, oh, Brian, sorry. You're talking about something different. JW, it would only matter for SSDI, which is you. So Brian is talking about SSDI, and I forget what Brian was talking about. He was fully, hi, I was fully, and got a couple letters. I got one. Oh, SSDI only? I wouldn't imagine it would be that long then. But you have to check to see if you have any debts to the federal government. Do you have back taxes you owe? Do you have outstanding alimony, arrearages, or child support? That will also potentially be offset. So they just do all these little checks. And it doesn't usually take long. I mean, particularly if it happens on initial or recon, sometimes they're paid like 3 days later. Gotta love that, right? Brian says no offset because it's still open on workers' comp claim. I'm not sure. Did you get temporary wages in the past, though? A lot of times, doesn't workers' comp often go where they're paying you while you're out until they determine if you can go back to work, temporary wages? And it's funny because my friend and colleague is a workers' comp attorney, a partner at a firm in Jersey, and she's been doing it forever. She knows everything there is to know about it. Her name is Sharon, by the way. If you need a good workers' comp attorney in New Jersey, let me know. Temporary wages, and when she speaks about it, it's all Greek to me. But temporary wages, and then, which are pretty huge compared to SSD usually, particularly for middle to lower income folks. That is something that you already got. So if your SSD is resolved, they now know what your SSD was for the months that you got the workers' comp. Because you don't know people say, well, we're in a settlement phase now. Well, that's fine, but they might want to offset you for what you've done already. And then your future settlement could have another offset for those future months. MD is in the house. MD 77. Have you ever heard of an MD who was a pain specialist doing an osteopathic manipulation on a back and lumbar radiculopathy patient? No, but I don't really study what happens at people's appointments, so I can't really say. A pain specialist, he could be an osteopath, could be an orthopedist. A lot of times they're anesthesiologists too. So, if he's qualified, he's qualified. My goodness sake, chiropractors who are not MDs do manipulations. So I really can't speak to it, MD. By the way, is MD because you are an MD? I would love to pick your brain. Nothing good says adult. I think we're talking about the adult SSI child. Am I remembering correctly? All right, so they're doing a review. Is that a CDR? Or is it a financial review? Sean says, I'm 54, work as a letter carrier for 28 years. Oh, I have my share of letter carrier in the past and now, letter carrier clients. And all that walking and carrying those heavy bags all those years, it definitely does a toll. There's some certain professions where I see a lot of musculoskeletal impairments as they get older. Letter carrier is one of them. Believe it or not, like FedEx people too. A lot of lifting stuff, sometimes a lot of that driving. Obviously heavy construction workers. That's a young man's job. It is. And it's funny. A dear old friend who has long since dearly departed used to tell my husband, it was kind of like an uncle figure to him. I knew him separately in town before I knew my husband, but he, my husband was just saying this the other day, that he said, my husband used to be in construction because his dad was a contractor, and then he's getting involved. He wasn't really the academic type. And this uncle figure said, who was a police officer actually in, like, I want to say Newark. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. He was a fireman. The other uncle was a policeman. He kept urging my husband, who was in his 20s, you got to get out of it. Don't plan on doing this for long. It'll kill your body. He's like, how many of our friends are hunched over now, now that they're 50 or less even, because of the wear and tear on the body that's just not meant to do that day in and day out. But with mankind being so skilled at building and architecture and infrastructure, the jobs are there. But young man's job, I guess really should use it to maybe make money while you're getting a skill to do something else, or own the company. And then hire other people, hire other young people. Sean says U.S. Postal Service. Yeah. Yeah. How's it going for you? If you need us to take a look at it, given we're kind of in the U.S. Postal Service letter carrier mode as we speak, feel free to go to, I have it up top, but if not, it's at the joydisability.com website. In the upper left, Sean, is a link for a free disability evaluation. Mention your name here, and I will tell them to just shoot it right over to me. And I'll give you a call. That's if you don't have representation. If you do, fingers crossed, treat. They're going to tell you the same thing. And fingers crossed in your case. Can you hear the dogs, guys? I just watched Amazon car go by. Meanwhile, my husband bought a gift for our daughter's boyfriend for Christmas. It's like a gift from the two of us. And it came by Amazon. And my husband asked if we had seen it because it was supposed to come in today, and he got notification that it had been delivered. And we're like, no. And he looks, and you know how they give you a picture of where they dropped it off? They said dropped it off on the porch. It was on the side of the road. Like not even in the driveway, like just on the side of the road where the driveway would meet up. So I assumed maybe it got run over. Anyway, it turns out my son had seen it when he came home, and he had pulled it in. So it was in the house. But how, leaving it like that, I said, like, you really got to complain, like that Amazon driver. Sorry, that was lazy. The driveway is perfectly, it's paved, and it was dry, and it was, cleared of the snow from last week and all that. So that was a little annoying. I think it should be complained about. Just because it was intentional laziness. It wasn't like a negligence or accident, because I would never complain about someone. We all have our days, right? MD77 says, I saw him, so this must be the doctor, for the first time a couple days ago, and he is the only doctor at the facility who still has not put a care summary in my patient portal. He only wrote what I call my subjective input. I don't know the full details of it. Is it the CARES Act? But that law that came about, and then it was adjusted. In 2019, it was passed that by December 2020, they had to start putting their progress notes in, not just this, like you said, subjective input. And it got delayed, I think, because of COVID. So it was pushed to like April of 2021. But since then, they have to do it, and they have to do it pretty timely. So I don't know how much time has gone on with that appointment, but that might be something to look into to, if you want to be a squeaky wheel. It's very annoying. I hear you. Those care summaries are squat. You were here. Yeah, I know I was there. It's on my calendar. You don't need to tell me that. Sean says he's not allowed to drive, which is a critical part of my job. Yes, because you're driving the vehicle. So you have no license. Is that it? That is not going to probably be enough. Sean, let's just go over the grids that you're subject to at 54. You have to prove that you are limited to sedentary work or less. So whatever is preventing you from driving, does it also prevent you from sitting in an office chair or a table? stuffing envelopes. Is this sitting for 6 to 8 hours? Not possible. That's the gist of it. And then are there any other transferable skills from the rest of your letter carrying job? Are any of them transferable? And if so, then they could say, if, let's say you have to prove that you can't do more than sedentary. You have to prove that you can't do your prior job, which you've pretty much proven, I think, and that your skills from that job will not transfer to the sedentary job you could otherwise do. So your deal might be, boning up on all three of those aspects there, because they might try to peg you at light, which means you don't get the light prong and you don't necessarily hit the transferable skills. I'd like to argue that letter carrying has no transferable skills. That would be my big argument to meet that one prong. Then you got to still meet the other prongs, which are all based on your medical records. Limitless says, where are you, Limitless? Oh, okay. Just reiterating. MD says, and that makes me nervous. Should I request all my medical records? Yeah, why not? And I suggest you do it in the high-tech HIPAA format, MD. That way they can't charge you per page and charge you, if they have 200 pages, they can't charge you $200 or $300 or whatever. Every state potentially has its own rules on that, but the federal government, if it's more generous to you, you can, it preempts. So high-tech HIPAA says, I have videos on this, and I would strongly recommend it to any pro se who is getting their own records in. It basically says, if a patient in his HIPAA form is requesting his records to be sent to him, not to an attorney, not to grandma, not to the chiropractor, not to another doctor, to himself, and says, and I want them in high-tech fashion, fax, email. Technically, you could say CD, but then they're going to charge you for the CD. And do you even have a CD reader? So with the high-tech HIPAA that I share to anybody who wants it, and particularly my clients, so that the bill is generally going to be under $10 to get your records this way, even if it's 500 pages, because they can't charge you per page, and they can't charge search time to go find your file and dig it out. They can only charge for the amount of minutes the worker takes to send them to you. And since everybody has a portal and electronic records, they are subject to the fact that they can send it to you by a download link, they can fax them to you, or they can email them to you. And they have to do it the way you want them to do it, unless it would be unreasonably difficult for them, which it's not for any medical office that has computers. So save yourself some money. This didn't exist the whole time I practiced. It's been several years now, though. It wasn't until a few years ago that we all kind of wrapped our minds around it. One of the major medical records companies that does the job of storing medical records and fulfilling medical records requests on behalf of various medical providers, they sued, saying, and basically it was to make it the way I just said it, that if they ask that it go high-tech to a lawyer, we can still charge them. And technically, the way Congress, and all of its ignorance, wrote the law was that it didn't protect against that. So the company's name was Siox, SIOX, and I would take that as a win for them in one sense. But so what? So then the patient just has the request in his name only. I mean, it's not a big deal if they're going to be trying to make their living that way. I mean, they get paid by the medical provider to house their records. So why are they even charging patients for their digital copy that they press a couple buttons and send it to you? So that's why they can't charge more than, it's going to generally be not, I've never seen, nowadays I half the time don't even see them get charged, but sometimes they'll get a charge for like $6.89. It's always under $10, if at all. And back in the day when this didn't exist, my clients had to fuck up the money for medical records, because medical records could be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And we were only, the maximum we could make on a case was only hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So obviously we can't pay for it, else we wouldn't be in business. So people had to pay for their own expenses. Now, I know a lot of my colleagues still don't do this, and I have videos out on it, but high-tech HIPAA is the way to go. It's the way to go. If any lawyers are not using it for their clients, it's a travesty, because they're probably taking out the cost of the records from your settlement or anything else in whatever field it is in. And why should you have to be paying that when it could have just been done the high-tech HIPAA way? Just saying. Sean says, thank you for responding to my questions. My pleasure. And thanks for being here, Sean, for sure. Thank you for the mail. You know, we bust chops on the U.S. Postal Service, but it's not on the individuals, just so you know. I know that there's probably overworked and understaffed. Let's just put it that way. U.S. Postal Service made some stupid mistakes, and probably the laws surrounding them made stupid mistakes that made it financially unfeasible to run the way we expect them to run. Limitless says, point is, clients need to follow their gut when choosing an attorney. I agree, by and large. Yeah, I think we all need to do that, generally speaking. I don't know. I get torn on it. You know, I've been screwed myself with contractors, so. Not the one I currently use, though. He's been good. Hey, Shub. What's up? How's it hanging? Jen Me is here. Hi, Stephanie. I'm way late. Well, it's good you're way late, Jen Me, because we had like a 20-minute faux pas because my computer, I didn't have my headphones, which I ended up retrieving, and they did have enough battery, but I have a new computer system, and it's not working out so well with the sound wasn't going through. Like my microphone was not picking me up. I don't know why. Anyway, I kind of got it fixed through this, but I'm not sure how or why. So it's just pure luck. So hopefully it'll be fine for next week. Anyway, Jen says, in the hospital. Oh no. I hope you're okay, Jen. When I was picking attorneys, no one would take my case. One, probably because I'm so young. That's definitely a factor. So I had to go with big box firm. After hearing, I got new lawyers. Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. I mean, I'm glad they still take cases that, I mean, you probably had a difficult case. It is such a high bar. So I'm glad you have new lawyers. Keep up the fight, girl. Titus Mangum. What a cool name. I'm 60 years young and made it to step 4 on my SSD claim in 38 days. What are my chances? Wow. I have no idea what your chances are, but that's unusual. I'm hoping that means that you had such stellar info and met these criteria so clearly that that's a boom, boom. You know, step 4 is, can he do his prior work, right? So, I mean, 38 days and they have all your records, unless you're saying, oh, I didn't treat. I just told him I was disabled because I am, but I don't go to doctors. Well, then you got to step 4 pretty darn quick because it's going to be a denial. But if that wasn't the case, Titus, then it'll be interesting. Report back, please. Let us know. We'll be here every Wednesday, 1:00 p.m. MD says, oh, pain specialist. Yeah, usually it's anesthesiology. And not always, I don't think. But I wonder if when they call themselves a pain specialist, if it would generally be an anesthesiologist. And maybe they never practiced the art of actual anesthesia in we always think of it as like a surgical setting. But, you know, anesthesia is just pain mitigation, right? Of the drug form, usually. Limitless says, if first-time SSDI approvals are such a small percentage, can you offer to those considering applying some framework as to what to consider for themselves as to whether or not to be discouraged by this percentage? I wouldn't, because I haven't looked at the waterfall in a couple of years. It's a waterfall chart that some entity puts out. I got to go look it up. Empire or something. But it was like 38%. I don't find that to be horrible. Now, I would strongly suspect that the heavy end of those 38% are in the 55 and up crowd. And then the next biggest portion in the 50 to 55, 54 crowd. And then the small section would be the under 50 crowd. So you really can't, there's no way I could say be encouraged or discouraged, because every case depends on what you put into it, what your disabilities are, if you are realistically disabled, in reality, and if you are treating extremely vigorously like it's your only job in the world. How's that sound? But I don't know that 38% was that bad, actually. It was pretty good. I mean, I think. And then, 15% on top of that denied would then be flipped on recon. That's generally speaking. I will say that is not. I should say that also includes the people that don't do squat on their cases on initial and recon and just hope to win because they applied. Think about all the people that actually work on initial, getting documentation, making sure if they have a lawyer, their lawyer knows and everything is getting in, and their lawyer is the type that actually sends it into SSA or notifies the adjudicator, hey, get these records because these are, this is a new thing. That might be the minority of law practices that do that. We do it, but I know a lot do not. Maybe that makes a difference too, because I find almost disappointment when I have a client that has to actually head to hearing, because I almost feel like we've got to the point where it's far less than what it used to be in a positive way. And this excludes, I will say, those harder cases that we take. Those I expect to go to hearing. And I'll flat out say, we're going to give it our all the whole way, but I would expect this to go to hearing because the kind of case you have has discretionary factors that a judge can provide that an adjudicator cannot. I would say initial and recon, my perception is that it's kind of like a checkbox thing. You either fit yourself in those checkboxes or you're going to be denied. So if something is like discretionary or interpretive, whether it fits in that box, or I think they're going to err on the side of caution and have you go to a judge so a judge can feel you out better. Dimple's in the house. Dimple says, I'm late. And as I was saying above, Dimple, that's good because the first 20 minutes was a total collapse. I am late, had an appointment. We'll catch up with the replay. Sounds good. I found my answer from your video titled, I won my SSI. Why does SSA need to interview me? There you go. Yeah. You heard that? That's funny. It's like Tasha's awake. Tasha, you want maybe a cracker? So those little flat pretzels. I know people food, you're not supposed to give your pets people food. Apparently she's grown up on it, so with her former adopted mommy. You're welcome. Nothing good. Vivi is in the house. Hi, Stephanie. I've been watching your videos for a month or so, and they've been really helpful. Oh, that's super sweet. Based on the videos I've seen from you, I'm considered one of those 1%ers. Oh, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Have you been having trouble getting, I'm just curious, have you filed? Have you had trouble getting an attorney? Or a non-attorney rep? Don't forget about them. There's some good ones out there. There's good and bad of either kind of representation, I would say. The only thing about lawyers is that they can be held accountable if they screw up far more than a non-attorney rep can. Okay, Vivi says, I'm in SSI recon with a severe mental health disability, meet listings, 0 attorney. You're in your 20s, 0 work credits, getting own updated medical evidence will submit at 561. Yeah, you got your shit together. Yeah, just keep up the fight. One thing about SSI is that if you're in a perpetual state of not being able to earn and you don't have SSD, well, even if you had SSD, you can always refile for the SSI. There's no deadline or limits or anything like that. So sometimes it's a marathon for sure, Vivi. And just, try to learn a lot about what kind of medical evidence, mental health evidence really goes towards showing that you can't do any job. What is it about your symptoms that prevent that? And having that documented not once, not twice, not 3 times, for months and years. Tying it all together. And it's got to be pretty severe. Garden variety mental health problems. It's like you can't really rely on that, guys, because I don't know if it's more than half, but a lot of people that work suffer from depression, suffer from anxiety, sometimes a little OCD, anger management. Hello, right? For sure. So, you just got to show that you are far worse than that. Your situation is way different. Jen says, I wasn't offended though. I understand law firms get paid on back pay and try to take cases they can win. The lawyers I have now handle federal all the time and are very appalled on what is going on. Yeah, I won't even ask about that, because that could be a can of worms that I think would be inappropriate. Okay. Oops. Okay, JW says, well, having my workman's comp primary doctor said he would fill out the SID form 1151, BK for me for assignment ability to work. Okay. So he's referring, guys, to the HA 1151, which, if I recall, is that the one that's met? Maybe it's not the mental health one. Maybe that's with a 3. Ability to work. It can be helpful, JW, if he answers it not in the way that a workers' comp doctor would answer it, but in a way, put it this way, what he says can, if it doesn't fit the SSD mold of law, can actually show that you're impaired and limited, but not so much that you can't do this little tiny set of easy jobs over here. And then that could be a negative. So, and just so you know, you have a legal obligation to submit that report, as I understand it. Good, bad, or ugly, once you get it. So it's kind of like you tread cautiously, when you ask for these things. We do it with great caution. And you really want the records of that doctor to already say, in so many words, what the level of limitation is. And you need to know, does that level of limitation meet that grid or meet that particular standard I need to meet for my particular vocational profile on whether I can work? Because if their records say something different, then probably his answers on your report will say something different. It could be just a nidge higher than, more ability than what it takes to drop under the line. And then you just gave the SSA evidence to help prove that you're not disabled. So just be very careful. All right. I think that's it, guys. It is 3:00. Technically, we're 2 hours in, but we lost 20 minutes with my faux pas with the inability to figure out my speaker situation on this new system. I have to figure it out, though. I don't know if this figures it out, but what if I don't have these and I just want to go through the speakers here, right? I'm going to have to play with this week. So if not, at least I kind of know that it might work with these in for next time. Jen says, Well, to start, the federal judge looked at the ALJ decision. Okay. The federal judge looked at the ALJ decision and asked my lawyers, why did the ALJ do this and this? And we're like, you tell us. So they had a hearing? Usually it goes on papers. So are you sure that happened, Jen? Well, think about it. Every judge in every area of law is a person that has to make a judgment call. And actually, if you think about it, people in general, we all have to make judgment calls. And how many times have you made a wrong judgment call? With all the evidence you had, we all have. And I would imagine that would happen with judges too. There are probably far less mistakes than what we have because they're trained specifically in this specific area. And, you'd think they would know. Whereas we're flying by the seat of our pants with, different situations all through life that we have to bounce back to, right? We have to address and all that good stuff. So I don't know how it is imperfect, but only because life is imperfect, right? We're all imperfect. I make bad judgment calls sometimes, and I'm like, shoot, I should have gone. I would have gone the other way if I saw it the way I see it now. If I saw it that way then, I mean, we're just human. So I look at that a lot, and the law it's not able to. It's an organized structure of criteria and rules, and no set of such is ever going to catch everything, I don't think. I mean, if you're going to catch everything, then you have to get rid of the rules and just give everybody the SSD or the SSI, the award. You know what I mean? So I look at it kind of like that. That's not to say your judge didn't screw up. And in fact, you'll probably find out when it gets remanded that he did. And it was one of the ones where he actually did a poor job. And that's why it's remanded. But I don't know that we can get a more perfect system if we're going to keep a system alive, I guess. It's almost like, by analogy, you don't want to risk your kid getting hurt, so you never let him out of the house. Well, he's not going to get hurt. You don't want to risk your kid getting hurt outside, so you never let him out of the house. Well, you're going to succeed. He's not going to get hurt outside. But is the damage done by the other total safety net, not more damaging and a bigger loss? I don't know. But that's kind of how I look at it. You got to just kind of weigh and risk and tweak where it can be tweaked. Jen goes on to say, oops, no, that's Lalulu. Oops, wait a minute, hold on, I'm sorry. Sorry. Yes, it did, and I didn't know it was going to happen. My lawyer called me. They had a hearing. Was it oral argument? And I assume the SSA was there to defend its decision. My lawyer called me and told me about it. But there is also corruption and denial rates. Past judges talk about it on YouTube. Keep in mind, some of them are trying to make a little penny on clickbait. So, but there probably is. Well, look up what is it, Eric Kahn case? I believe there were judges, lawyers, and doctors all corrupt. And what was it for, Jen? It wasn't for denial rates. It was for false awards. So it goes both ways. It's when you're dealing with humans, we humans have a tendency to have a streak of deception and greed. And for some, it gets the better of them and it usurps their morals and their values and everything else. I don't know. I will say also, there was a judge who got removed. I had him in a case and he awarded my girl and I was shocked. It was a 1%er. And I really didn't expect her to be awarded because she was a really different, she was a super person, but she wasn't really a good testifier. And she had one of those kind of cases that was like subjective. I knew she was disabled, but but she would, she didn't want to do certain treatments. She would give the doctor what for. And And she went very naturopathic kind of, because everything triggered her symptoms. And this judge awarded, and I almost fell off my seat, and so did she. We both knew it was a tough case. And we were thrilled. A few months later, what happened? I got a letter saying, we're scheduling you for hearing. And I called up the hearing scheduler, and I said, what do you mean? We had a hearing. And it went quite well, actually. We didn't have a decision, by the way. The judge told, the indication on the record was that we were. And she said, I don't know, but he's not here, and all his cases have to be redone. I was like, shit. So we did have to go for another hearing, and interestingly, we did win. But that judge, what happened was, it turns out he had been awarding 100% of all claimants. And apparently not everybody is fully disabled, even though they think they are. You know, some people think, if I can't do sedentary work, I'm used to doing this job. If I can't do this job, I should win. And they get denied because there's other jobs they can do, legitimately do. And they keep applying, and they have a right to a hearing, and they go, and they need to be denied. I think you would agree with me, right? They need to be denied if there's other work they can do. So that's kind of where it starts from, I guess. The rules are designed to make sure the people that can do other work, who are not, in fact, disabled from all work, don't prevail. And yeah, it gets really sticky. I don't envy judges their job. I would never want to be a judge. Back when I was younger, I thought, oh, how prestigious. That would be really cool. Heck no. I would not want to do that. I would not want to have that be the deciding factor, you know, because they can't pick and choose what cases come before them. The sympathetic, but cases that the guy really could do a different job. I just wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to be there. Wouldn't want to be there. Wouldn't want to be president either, because that is a very difficult job too, and to make a lot of tough decisions. La Lulu says, if only your voice, you don't need any speakers at all to live stream. Well, you need the speakers through the computer. That's what I was using, by the way, La Lulu, and whatever was in my computer wasn't working. And now I think I'm going through my standalone web camera. You'll only need an input device like the computer. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, but it didn't work. I will keep trying though, because maybe, you know, I remember this happening before, and I think I had to figure when I first started doing any of this, I remember I had to kind of figure it out and go into settings. So maybe that's what it's about. I'll figure it out. Yeah, she says you'll probably have it solved 5 minutes after broadcast. Could be. Although I have some other things I have to do. I have some phone calls to make. La Lulu reminds everybody, remember to like, thumbs up this video. I appreciate it. It does certainly help. Lucky says, my hearing is January 9th. Lucky, I don't know that we met. Lucky Southern girl. Well, I'm glad you're lucky. Hearing is January 9th, age 54, turned 55 in May. 4.5 years to get to this point. No prior work since 2017. Scar tissue from spine infection after back surgery. See pain doc monthly. Good chance. So you have a remote DLI. Would that be correct? Would that mean that your DLI is in 2022? Lucky at the latest. So the only evidence they can rely on is the stuff before your DLI, date last insured. So I'm hoping that you have a lot of good stuff there. For the last few years, I think, and Jonathan and I have talked about this, Ginsburg, quite a bit. The last few years, I'd say the last 5 years at least, it seems like they are tougher on the 50 to 54 crowd than we would like to see. You know, the 50 to 54 crowd, the one prong to a grid is that if you can't do sedentary work, if you can only do sedentary work, and and you can't do higher than that, such as light, then you meet that prong, and then you just have to meet the other two for a grid. We see so much now, these last several years, I guess, of them always pegging a 50 to 54-year-old at light exertional, RFC. When it's like, come on, that person cannot be standing up for 6 to 8 hours with a bad back. I honestly don't know that a bad back that is bad enough where you're treating, you're getting shots, you might have had a surgery. Standing 40 hours a week on your feet, or at least 6 out of the 8 hours, and being able to lift up to 20 pounds occasionally, which is 1/3 of the workday. I think so many people with bad backs would not be able to do that. But they religiously peg them at light. Definitely on initial and recon. Judges are better. But that makes me think it probably happened around 2015, an unspoken policy shift to tighten up on that age group and push for the fact that you could nudge them into light and not acknowledge sedentary for them. And then they will win at 55 if they're still insured for SSDI, which is why I always talk about keeping up some credits, guys. Very, very important in this whole, I don't know, however many years now, atmosphere. And I do think that they do have unspoken policy shifts like that, because it happened around 2010 also. That one was actually just like, I heard about it from people who went to seminars where judges, they might have been retired at this point, I'm not sure, discussed it. It was not a formal proposed rule change, anything like that. It was a directive from the top of the food chain to reduce awards somewhat by, and I don't remember what avenue it was, but it was, and maybe it was actually the same one. Maybe it actually started then. I just didn't really see the results until much later. Like, I heard about them from my colleagues, like they were having some more bad results than they were used to. I never really saw it personally until much later. And it might only just be because we do things differently down here. We work on recon, we work on, on initial. And it can change the trajectory, I think, because you're also nagging your client. You got to go do this. You got to go do that if you want to build your case. It makes a difference. It's a nag. I'm a nag, but it makes a difference. So I think it's very possible that there was some sort of unofficial policy shift. And I can't even say if it was the one from 2010 just vamping up or whatnot, but it's probably been about 5 years. And I mean, I know some people that won't take an under 55 case now. I do, but obviously, but I get it. They got to keep their doors open depending on what their needs are financially anyway. Yeah, go figure out what your prior records are, Lucky, and up to whenever your DLI is, and go through them and see if you've forgotten any providers. That's a really easy thing to do. Someone that you forgot from the time you stopped working in 2017, or even right before then, that you didn't include. It's not uncommon that someone was left out. And I know it's kind of hard to remember back. Now we're talking almost 10 years, but it might be worth doing, So good luck with it. Fingers crossed for you. Rennie says, I was awarded from my 55th birthday. There you go. See what we were just talking about. I want to know, will my grandson be able to be on my SSDI benefits, as I've had him since birth? I'm not going to be totally fresh on these rules, Rennie, but I think you have to have had adopted him. And it might be that you have to have had adopted him a certain amount of time before. Not sure on those details. It has been several years since I think I either did a video a long time ago or I did an article on it. I can't remember, but if you never adopted him, despite being basically his parents, the financial obligation is then his other parent, the biological parents. If they never gave up or lost their stuff because someone else adopted. But look into it. I haven't heard of a change, but I actually haven't been looking either. So I suspect it hasn't changed, but you know, you never really know. So I would look into it. I do sometimes, I think about it sometimes and I'm like, you know, if a grandparent is caring for the child because their own child, this is not that uncommon, got himself into lifestyle, he or she into bad lifestyle trouble and is an incompetent parent, and the grandparents doing all the rearing, it might be worthwhile earlier on to adopt the grandchild. I mean, there's probably all sorts of things to think about, of course, but indeed, when you're on retirement or S&D, because you're a young you know, to me, you're a young grandparent because I'm older than you and I'm not a grandparent at all. And my kids are, one of them still a minor, but I feel like it's something to think about because then you could be, you're adopting him, you're paying for him anyway. You would get 50% of whatever your benefit is added to your household income to help support that child. Let's say you're well able to support the child. You don't need that. Okay, so what? Take that 50% and use it for his portion. And then you have a certain amount of money extra that you can now make a big savings for him. So when he's older and you know that he's straight and narrow and able to handle it, you can give it to him, right? You could have it put in a trust. You could hand it to him outright, but it would be, you know, your money to do with what you want because you already, you know, even with the benefits, you supported him to X amount. You don't want to keep that as, I'm not spending his money. Well, then he's going to get it at 18 and you know what they're going to do with it at 18. It's probably nothing good, but there's other ways you can handle it legitimately. Just document that, no, I spent his benefits on his portion of the rent and his, you know, and then you could, because you're not spending on that now from your own monies can go into savings and you could leave him much more. You know, you're not going to be here forever. We're all going someplace, right? Anyway, just a tangential idea. MD says, I just asked the doctor for the high-tech HIPAA records. They told me all these charges I would have to pay per page. See, you can't ask him for the high-tech HIPAA records. The records are not high-tech HIPAA. Your form is a specific form. I have a copy if you need it. I reiterated the high-tech HIPAA, and she said she would have the records. The department call me. Did you actually use a high-tech HIPAA? It's a certain language. A regular HIPAA doesn't cover high-tech. So if you have troubles, just say, you mentioned on the thing that I could ask you for your copy of a high-tech. Mine's I put a little fun into mine. I give them a little what for, and the one that my clients are allowed to use. So, and by the way, when I say my clients are allowed to use it, we facilitate faxing for them and all that, and the timing, and we do it all. But it's their high-tech HIPAA. It's not, our name is not on it, because otherwise it would defeat, because SIOX said, oh, no, we can't see an attorney name on that, or else we get to charge them out the yin yang. So, you know, when they throw these, they play by funny rules, you play back. Lucky, you are very welcome. Thank you for being here every Wednesday, girl or boy. No, girl, yeah. She says, I apologize. I don't know what DLI means, date last insured. So for SSD, when you were paying taxes all those years on that work you did, you were paying Social Security tax, and that earned you credits. It basically paid your premiums for the term insurance known as Social Security disability insurance. Term insurance ends when you stop paying in, and you stopped paying in 2017 or before. So the most your window of being insured would last in that term, since you paid the premiums at 17, is 5 years. That's the most. It can be less if you were like had taken off a couple years before then, here and there. because you wouldn't have paid the premiums to have the certain amount of credits you need. It basically comes down to 20 quarterly credits have to be earned and paid for in the 10 years before the date you claim you were disabled. And you always have to say you were disabled while you were still insured, blah, blah, blah. She says, I have monthly doc visits, but my pain doc and my primary both have policies to not do any disability work. That is the majority of doctors, so don't worry about it. If their records are good, you won't need that. If you had them fill out, opinion forms or whatever about what you can do and not do, there's a good chance they would screw it up because they don't know the law and what answers tip you under or tip you slightly over whether you're disabled or not. So I wouldn't worry about that. The vast majority of medical providers are not caring enough to their patients to even bother. I've had some say they'll charge them $500. I think it's disgusting, but that's me. I mean, they're treating you. If they had competent records, you wouldn't need them to clarify what they meant and what they know about you. So don't get me started. They tick me off. All right, enough about that. MD says, I told her I needed the last one included from 2 days ago, and she said the doctor had not closed it out yet. That appointment was 2 days. 2 days is not, I mean, yeah, a lot of times we see it like the next day, but that would not kind of be probably a violation of something. Doctor was harsh and made me uncomfortable repeating questions. So the doctor has very poor bedside manner, shall we say? Lawyers, we have a bad bedside manner, generally speaking, too, I think. I don't know that I do, but I only make my phone calls when I'm in the appropriate mindset to make them too. If you notice, if you ever call here, I'm not picking up the phone, and neither is anybody else because I'm the only one that talks to the clients. So they'll get a call back from me when I'm not in the middle of something. I don't want to call people when I'm in the middle of a deadline. I'm cranking through something because they're not going to get my undivided attention. So I do it when it's perfect, or as perfect as it can be. Nothing's actually perfect. Ken Tramsey says, hi, Ken. I don't think we met. Is it Kent or Ken? So is it Kent Ramsey or is it Ken Tramsey? Okay. I'm thinking maybe it's Kent Ramsey. I applied in October and have already had a CE last week. That's fast. Since I have applied, had an x-ray showing degenerative facet disease of the spine. Took the info with me and the doctor would not look at it. Yeah, don't worry about that. Remember, the exam is not so he can study your medical history. It's about what you can and cannot do as per his examination of you. What's kind of objectively there, right? So I know everyone wants to bring them the whole set of records and this and that. And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, if you want to bring an MRI, whatever, if it's recent. But they still have to do the tests they have to do. And that's going to be the answers, not what some diagnostic says, because an MRI with a herniated disc doesn't really mean anything if you're still strong, have great balance, and can lift and can walk unlimited, so it's really going to be their test results. They're arguably silly test results, but that's kind of how that works out. I don't give a lot of mustard to bringing selective records. It's not that I don't think it can be okay. And we've talked about this before. I just think you can't expect that it's going to make a difference. I used to be a little perturbed that the DDS didn't send a bunch of records. Sometimes they sent, well, it wasn't, I was perturbed that they didn't send the records. I would be perturbed that they would cherry pick ones that if you're going to send them, send this. You know what I mean? But I've since kind of even pulled back. I mean, I still agree with what that position was of mine. But in terms of feeling upset that he won't look at the records, again, he knows you're cherry picking. So think about it. You're understandably trying to steer him in a direction by sending him this MRI report. What if there was another MRI report that you haven't given him that says a complete opposite? So I can't really say I disagree, And I will say also, they don't get paid much. I mean, it's not, as I saw one, it was like $200. So that's not too bad considering they give you 5 minutes of their time. Some of them give more than that though, but it used to be like $90. I don't know. And I was like, wow, I can kind of get it while they're not going to really put too much time into these things because they still have to produce the report, which is why the reports are probably really sketchy. Lucky says, can't I be considered 55 since I turned 55 3 months from the hearing? That will depend on, I did a video on this. I think I described, it's like particular, and I don't remember the exact details of how it works. You'd have to watch the video. And I think there's a link. There's an SSA page you can look at that describes when they can consider you 55. But in your case, Lucky, wait a minute. Just to confirm, are you the one that hasn't worked since 2017? Yeah. All right. That's not going to help you at all anyway, because they can't consider the evidence now and your age now, because if they decided you're disabled now, you still don't get Social Security because, well, if it's Social Security disability, because you're no longer insured now, you have to prove it from the records from before and what age you were then. If you're SSI, and if you should be SSI and aren't, you're going to want to pop in. No, probably too late now, but SSI doesn't have that date last insured, and they can look at everything all the way up to the present. You have to be pretty poor for that, though, so I don't really wish that on you, but if the shoe fits. Well, SSA, this is Kent Ramsey. Well, SSA look at records from after the date I applied. Well, yeah, they have. Yeah. They're going to look at all the records in the relevant time period to find out if you were disabled while insured. And I don't know what your DLI is or anything like that. Once they find out that you did become disabled during the time period when you were insured, then they make sure it continued to the present and that you didn't have a recovery of 2 years. Let's say you didn't go to the doctor for 2 years. They'd probably be like, no evidence of continued disability. He has a closed period from back then, whatever. But yeah, it's going to be, when you applied, you told the SSA about all your doctors. And then you updated them, right? You gave them new records, assuming you don't have a lawyer, told them about new doctors you continued to treat and show that you were disabled still, right? Because you can't just be temporarily disabled and it be over. At least not before you win, generally. So you could, you continue to treat, and then if you obviously got denied. Well, actually, you didn't say you were denied, right? No. Okay. Yeah. You keep them informed of all new visits, your adjudicator, and he's ordering them. That's his job. The ones that you put in your application. I mean, it's been so quick. You don't really probably have a lot of updates, but he is ordering those records, and those are records after the date you applied, right? Everything that he's going to order them. If you said you were seeing Jones back when you applied in October, he's going to order records from Jones to the present. So, yeah. And then any new doctors or visits you have, I'd keep the adjudicator apprised. I'd be like flies on poop, calling her every time I had a visit. If I were pro se. Now, as a lawyer, I don't call the adjudicator when my client has a visit. They do tell us after every visit, and then periodically. Well, the DDS is going to order when they order. And they know to go to the present. So that works out good. If there's a new provider, we send them a letter. Sometimes I'll make a phone call depending on what time, what the feeling is about getting close. Like if they've already had their CEs and stuff like that, I might call them. But otherwise, there's always going to be documented. There's going to be a letter and sometimes a phone call. Less likely for the phone call. I send the letter right to the adjudicator. It goes right in the file. And they're supposed to be looking at all that stuff as they're working up the case. And they'll be like, oh, now he's seeing Dr. Smith. Okay, let's order those. We like to do it in real time like that, ongoing, because we don't know when the adjudicator is going to pull the plug and make a determination. We don't know when they send it to the medical expert to get the RFC after they've gotten what they consider all the record. So I always want to make sure they have those up-to-date stuff, so they can't do something without me having sent in all the information of what's current, so they can keep gathering more, or sometimes I send them records depending on the situation. I just want it to always be in there so they can't say this is, at least I can berate them on really, they never got this, this, and this, and this, even though they were advised of it. So that person didn't do her job properly. What is this? Lisa, she ready? Lisa, she ready? 60-year-old obese female, aren't we all? Don't feel bad. With Hashimoto's and bilateral knee pains. Next move is knee replacement, but doctors don't recommend because of weight issues, more infections involved. Oh my Lord. Lisa, I'm so sorry. That sounds painful. So where are you at? Did you have a question? Did you apply? Do you have a lawyer? Where are you in the process? MD77 says, I've only seen him twice. This is the anesthesiologist, right? But it's hard to have my conditions and then have a doctor seem angry with me or skeptical. Such is life. Don't take it personally. He obviously doesn't mean it personally against you, but maybe switch doctors if you don't like him. If you don't think he believes you, then he shouldn't be treating you, first of all, for what he doesn't believe. I don't know how many options you have for a different pain management, but it's it's worth considering if he's really unpleasant. Sometimes it's better to have a PA. You guys ever find that? Or a nurse practitioner? I find some of them to be really good. So the ones I've used seem really good. And that's pretty much most of them. I mean, I don't really see a doctor anymore. I see the PA. Unable to do any jobs now. This is Vivi. Unable to do any jobs now. I have medical records for about 1 year, but have had conditions severe for a minimum of 2 to 3 years. Now, continuing appointments, but holes in attending because of symptoms, not non-compliance. When you report you're canceling an appointment, message them in the portal if there is one and say exactly why. I'm not sure. Let me just go back and see. My eyes are starting to bleed, guys. It's been 2.5 hours. Vivi. I think my voice is starting to go. I'm a yapper, aren't I? Vivi, I can't even see. Okay, SSI recon with a severe, I'm scrolling back up to refresh myself. With a severe mental health disability, meeting listings. Okay. So, Vivi, you have mental health plus a ton of physical. Oh, wait a minute. Now I'm getting mixed up. Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure what the question is here. Yeah, I would just say this about missing appointments because of symptoms. And that happens. You could be vomiting. You could, can't get out of the house, agoraphobia, whatever it is. You need to, I would say, document that file to the doctor. And doing it through the portal means it can't be taken out, I don't think. Not under law anyway. That is so annoying. Yeah, so at least it's in there and it'll be clearly not non-compliance, or it's not gonna replace the fact that you don't have the evidence for those visits. So you gotta make them, you're gonna want to get tough and get those in there, but it at least, be a fight against the non-compliance, any of that kind of allegation. Lucky, you are very welcome, Renee. I don't know where his mom is to adopt him. He was a week old. Yeah, I'm sorry, and that must be painful because it sounds like that's your daughter or your spouse's daughter. I don't know how old is this a child still? It must be, right? Speak to somebody, because if that's been an abandonment thing, I bet you there's ways to be able to adopt them. You got to give notice. Maybe, I don't even know how they do it. Parent constructive notice where she either sees it or she doesn't, and get her served. There must be a way where a child who's been abandoned by their parent can be adopted when the parent isn't going to show up. I bet you there is. I did one adoption in my whole legal career, and it was all laid out for me. I didn't have to do squat. I was pretty new, no idea what I was doing, but it was all done. It was very easy. It was like the stepdad was adopting the kid or something like that, and everybody was happy. It was a happy, nice day. That was when I was at a law firm. Brian says, hi, I have an open workers' comp claim, half paid. Does the set-aside affect me? It's not a set-aside. It's an offset. And I don't know. Do you breach the 80% rule? Look up the 80% rule. I do have some videos, Brian. If you want to look at them, look under the workers' comp playlist, and you'll see them there. It's all going to depend on your numbers. So Vivi is saying that she gathered records from about 2 years. You're giving your permission for the SSA to order them, so you really don't need to be gathering them yourself. If you find out that they have trouble obtaining any of these records, then you want to get on it. I mean, it's not that you can't get on it now, but I would be going back as long as possible. I mean, if the mental health problems were from, if you were ever in a hospital, admitted, that's pretty powerful, particularly if it's very recent. If it's old, maybe not so much, because it shows you improved, because you haven't found the need to go back. But yeah, I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing you're young. When I say young, I mean under 50. It can be a tough case, mental health, particularly if you're not so bad that you need to be stabilized in a hospital or anything. I always say, oh, you should look at, was I saying it to you? The playlist that's not even fully published yet, but maybe the first 4 or 5 videos are. The function report from the eyes of a mental health claimant perspective. Not that you're doing your function report right now, but it can help you think about things to think about in terms of how it limits you in other ways. Just a little more insight, because I know sometimes when you're coming from your perspective, you don't know all these things that others might consider, Kent confirms that it's Kent Ramsey. That's a very nice name, Kent. Sounds like movie starish. Oh, Lucky loves the bird. Yeah, she's very sweet. Do you want another cookie? Yeah. Cracker. I think I told you guys this before. If you're like eating and she's hungry, she doesn't seem that hungry now. I just filled her bowl before she left, and I kept her in there as long as possible so she'd eat as many seeds and nuts as she could. Because she'll demand people food, and she gets very spoiled here. Because I guess she probably got a little bit from her mama. Probably not as much as she has here. But if you're eating something and she sees you across the room, and she'll go, hey. I mean, she will literally say it like that. Hey. And we're like, what? Oh, you want some of this? Like, I mean, she has a sweet tooth. I know this is so bad. But she's 31 years old, she's a middle-aged girl. She should be able to eat a little bit of fun stuff, right? As long as she has her other stuff. I made her something with the pellets that the vet said, oh, birds should have pellets and not this man-made pellet stuff. It has all the nutrients. The seeds are horrible in terms of they don't do squat. Okay. That's great, but my birds wouldn't eat the pellets. I guess they taste terrible. So then I ground them up. I mixed them up with stuff. And that was, aside from being a pain in the rear, I couldn't tell if it was really working. So this time I bought snack pack pudding, and I added the ground pellets that we do in the blender and gelatin, because that's got like protein and stuff. And I mix it because it makes it thicker. And then I put it's not so thick. I kind of want it thicker, but I don't want to take away too much of the vanilla flavor. This time it's vanilla. This is my first time. So I don't know. I go off on a tangent, but I wanted it thick enough at least so I could have a mound, give a mound of it, and I could eat it, and they seem to like it. The little birds too. So I'm like, all right, then they're getting some pellets that way. Lucky's pointing out, make sure to subscribe and thumbs up. Agree, agree, agree. Come on, guys. Join the club. Lucky says, I think I listened to your grid video last night, if that's the one you mean on 55. Yep, probably. There might be a few of them. Yeah, so are you talking about if they could, were you 54 and wondering if they could consider you? Were you the one that just said that, 55, because it's 3 months away? No, it would be something else. Age category change. Look for that language. Age category change. It might say, it would be in the grids probably as a playlist, but something about age category change. All right, guys, we are at the end of the questions. Thanks for putting up with the earlier BS with the microphone situation. Oops, MD has a question. I'll get to it. MD, I promise. I appreciate it. I'll get it all straightened out. MD says, if the care summer is still open by a day before the osteopathic manipulation appointment, I'm tempted to cancel. Everyone in the office warned me he was a jerk. Okay, yeah. I mean, I would say if it's not up within a week, I would message him personally, be like, Dr. So-and-so, please put up the progress notes. Although you don't want to really piss off your doctor either. So, I don't know. I would be curious as to if there is a hard, fast date by which they must do it in that law. I don't know. If I ever get a clone or otherwise get a bug up my rear about it, I'll look it up and I'll report back. Lisa says, sorry, I did apply but didn't finish process. Also 1 year unemployed. So going to reapply, but I started going back to school part-time. How does it affect my case? Can't do delivery work nor sedentary. Lisa, were you the one that, am I terrible? I can't remember all the details. Yeah, 60 years old. 1 year unemployed. I don't know when you stopped work. If you want me to look at it, Lisa, I don't know. If you want, do the upper, at the website, joydisability.com, upper left is a link that says free disability evaluation. Fill that out. Note on there so they see it that you spoke to me and I said I would look at your case, and they can pop it right over to me. They don't have to go through their eval, okay? I'm more than happy to. I mean, if you have a lawyer, then you don't need to do that. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But otherwise, next week, hope to. Oh, it's next week. Yeah, I would hope by then it would be up. MD, I agree. Tiffany Zadek says, wanted to thank you for your suggestion regarding PCP. By the way, PCP, guys, is primary care provider when having trouble finding rheumatologists. Your empathy regarding my daughter and her disabilities, especially fibromyalgia. Oh, okay. Well, you're welcome. I don't recall specifically when we did that, but I am glad it was helpful, maybe. The PCP is probably going to be the fallback unless and until you can get a rheumatologist. Is that what's going on? Vivi says, thank you, Stephanie. I considered looking at my function report to include what abilities became worse for my personal statement to attach to 3441. There you go. Tiffany says, fibromyalgia gave me the strength to continue giving her the support she needed. Aw, her disability was approved. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Thank you for telling me that, because that really makes me feel like sometimes responding to those questions ad hoc can actually make a difference sometimes, putting that time in. So I appreciate it. Keeps us going, Danny Array. SOJ, I was in class today, forgot everything, but I was here. I know you were here. I'll talk to you later, Danny. All right, guys, I'm definitely going to cut out since we're almost 3 hours in. But again, we lost the 20 minutes, so that's on me. Thank you guys for hanging out, showing up, and I hope to see you next Wednesday. Hopefully my speaker situation will be perfect. And yeah, definitely stay tuned and try to visit the dailies if you can. That would be helpful. And on Sundays, we kind of do a little quickie about what was in a prior week for the dailies. So you can look at that too. It's all appreciated when you visit, like, and subscribe, as they tell me I should be asking for. So thank you so much. And if you came here just now, Mohawk, I'm going to squeeze you in and then nobody more. You understand? Got to come earlier. So I applied back in 2019, Mohawk says, and 2021 for SSDI. So it sounds like he applied twice. I never appealed to the ALJ level. I applied in 2023 again and was just found fully favorable with onset of July of 2018, a year before I even applied. Awesome. I wonder if he opened up any of the priors so that you could have bigger back benefits. Do you know about that? That's awesome, Mohawk. I'm very glad for you. Thank you for sharing that. See, guys, when there's a will, there's a way. Perseverance sometimes is what it takes. But I will always still push on the fact that if you're going to wait as long as Mohawk did, he was very fortunate. He was able to prove back to 2018. If he didn't, he might not have had a win, even if they found him disabled, because his DLI, date less insured, may have expired and he would not be insured at the later date when he became disabled. So that's why it's so important to consider keeping your credits going, even if it means working part-time, self-employed in something you don't love, but just to make enough, very part-time. So read up on that, because some of you who have a dragged out situation, particularly you young people, it could be the difference between getting it when you get a little bit older than you are and not getting it at all. And not getting it at all, if you don't go back to work, is going to crush your retirement benefit, and you might be stuck on SSI forever once you're 65. Not good. So much I can go into that. That is like my biggest mantra, I think. I want everybody to be able to get SSD if they're disabled. I don't want the DLI to ever be a bar, because it will destroy your retirement too. Your retirement is not going to be what you see in your estimate at all. That estimate is contingent upon you continuing to work at the rate you were until 62. So if you're not doing that, don't consider that estimate to be valid at all. It's in the fine print on your estimate. I'm not making it up, I promise. All right, guys, I'm starting to get a little sore throat and it's starting to hurt my ears. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I will talk to you next week. Any ideas or thoughts or questions that you think are suitable for a video, definitely feel free to share them on any post under any video that we have. And I'm doing my best to try to get a system to take a note and line them up. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye now.